China is casting a shadow in every direction. It's looking for neighbors who will serve alongside it, countries to join in the fight. And I got this impression when I heard fight. This is not necessarily a physical fight, but it could be more so a cultural one. Hey y'all, this is Troy Black. So this is what I heard about China. I'm going to be sharing this word about this next year and about war that I heard. So these are the previous words I shared about China. Okay. October 19th, 2021, I released a video called God Just Told Me This About China. The link is below of this video on YouTube. And in that video, I basically shared a prophetic vision I received about a great movement of the Holy Spirit coming to China. And then I shared another video on October 31st, that same month in 2021, called God Told Me China is Getting a Leadership Change. And what I shared in that video was a prophetic message about how China is getting a change in leadership fairly soon. And then also about how Asia is on fire with the makings of revival. So I believe that that leadership change, that word that I shared there, actually applies to partially to what I'm sharing today. But I also shared another word. This was on July 8th of 2022. So this was just a week ago. And in this video, I did not realize it had anything to do with China, but now I believe it does. The name of the video is God Showed Me a Coming Stock Market Crash. If you've been keeping up with my videos lately, you probably saw it at least pop up. There's a link to that video again below in this video, in the description of this video on YouTube. But in that video, what I shared was this phrase: a Winnie the Pooh war is about to happen. Y'all, when I shared this, I had no idea what I was saying, okay? I said, a Winnie the Pooh war is about to happen. You'll know it when you see it. And then he said, just let my people know I said this. Because I was like, Lord, what does this mean? He said, just say it. And I was like, all right. So I did. And then the other thing he shared was people fighting over what is rightfully theirs, but not making sense while they do it. And he said, greed will ruin you. And so several of the comments on this video, people started to talk about China and Taiwan. And so I'm going to read one of the comments. This is from a guy named Brian. He says, hi, Troy. As some others have already remarked, the current leader of China is commonly parodied as Winnie the Pooh in tabloids, and he hates that. So a Winnie the Pooh war fighting over something not rightfully theirs, Taiwan, makes perfect sense. And very timely, he said, I have thought for a while that China would make their move shortly. So I did not know this when I shared this. I had no idea that the current leader of China is commonly parodied in the tabloids and in comics as Winnie the Pooh, that character, you know. And in that video, what I shared was the idea of a Winnie the Pooh war and fighting over something that's not rightfully theirs. The idea was that these characters in this show, they will get themselves into situations and they'll a lot of them just do things out of impulse. You know, there's not a lot of like common sense and there's not a lot of wisdom behind the decisions they're making, right? And then they just keep digging themselves into a deeper hole, essentially. Like that's kind of the way the show goes. So it's very, very interesting. I do believe that word I shared in the stock market crash video could potentially be referring to the current leader of China, that Winnie the Pooh war, especially based on what I've heard now. So I'm not saying that 100%, but I am saying that is a very, very likely interpretation for that word. And it's very interesting about Taiwan as well. And I'm going to get to that. I'm going to respond to that idea. So this is what I heard yesterday, July 12th. I heard this yesterday. The Lord said the same thing again that he had said in that previous video. He said, China is getting new leadership. Then I heard the rain is ending soon. And then he said, within the next few years. And then he said, I'm bringing new light to the current situation. And then he said, what has happened and what hasn't happened. So he's bringing new light to what has happened and what hasn't happened that probably should have. And then he said, what's really going on? It hasn't escaped my notice. And then he said, the suffering servants. And I understand the meaning behind that when he says the suffering servants is he's talking about some of the persecution that's going on and some of the believers, you know, in that nation and potentially in some of the nations around that nation. But when he says the reign is ending soon and the current, you know, China's getting new leadership, I'm just going to be upfront and honest about that. I do not know if he's referring to the main leader of China. Okay. I'm going to just be honest. I have not heard that specifically. Obviously, you can try to infer something there. You can try to jump to conclusions and connect dots. I try not to do that, but I'm just trying to be obedient and share what I heard. So I believe that this word is connected to what I shared before in October. So here's the question, and the question is, okay, is China going to reach its hand out toward Taiwan in 2023, right? Like based on this Winnie the Pooh war and everything else that I've shared, I believe this question is going to be partially answered in this prophetic message that I heard on June 3rd that I'm going to share in a few minutes. But again, there is some ambiguity to this word. I'm going to share what I saw, what I heard, and I believe the Lord has given me the go ahead and share this now. But it's not going to give you the full interpretation. So we are probably going to have to wait until this next year to see what is actually going on. This is what I saw as I was waiting for the Lord that night. I saw these very vivid images of trees, as if I was outside, I was looking up into the sky through these trees. And the light in this vision that I saw was very vivid light. It's not always extremely vivid like this. Then I saw a map of the world, and I saw the Pacific Ocean. And then I saw on one side Japan and China, and on the other side I could see the US. And over the nation of Japan, in this vision of this map, I saw a red and yellow flag with a black symbol of an animal facing to the right with its arms up and forward, kind of like this, its front arms. And I did not recognize this flag when I saw it. I didn't know what country it was. I looked it up. I looked up like flags of the world, and I started scrolling down, and I saw, and so I'm going to try to show y'all this right now. Actually, what I saw was that it was very similar to the flag of Bhutan. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. So what you see in this flag is you're seeing obviously a dragon type of creature. It's got its hands up to one side, and it's red and yellow. The differences from what I saw in the vision were the animal was actually dark. It was like more black. I see it. Okay, great. Thank you. The animal was dark instead of light, and it was facing that way. So it was very similar though. As soon as I saw this flag, I was like, wow, there's actually a flag that looks very similar to this. And so I started to pray about this country, this nation of Bhutan. And this is what I heard specifically was there's something strange happening to this nation. And then I heard war on all sides. And then I heard caught in the middle like a sandwich. And then I heard the phrase, rumors of war in the East. And then the Lord told me to look up this nation's government and the trade issues in foreign trade, what's going on with their trade right now. Now we've got China on one side, and Bhutan is actually in the middle between India and China. And it's kind of surrounded, obviously got Nepal there and a few other countries. But it's a very small country in comparison to India and China. And it's one of the things I found when I looked it up was actually that the border is very disputed here, and China actually is putting pressure on Bhutan. And they're I'm just going to read what I found here. The headline, it's China's Himalayan buildup extends to disputed Bhutan border. And then the article says the tiny Himalayan kingdom is wedged between India and China. China's construction of villages and settlements along its Himalayan borders has extended to disputed territories in Bhutan, a small country wedged between India and China. So there's obviously pressure being put on this nation by China. And this lines up with what I heard in the rest of this vision. So here's where it gets a little bit, where this prophecy gets a little bit ambiguous. Is that the flag that I saw was not over Bhutan, it was over Japan. And so I actually talked to my friend Jacob, who helps me with these videos about this. And as we were talking about it, we were both Googling. And what we found there's another flag that's very similar. And it was actually the flag of China from 1889 to 1912. So I'm going to show you this real fast. So this was the flag of China, 1889 to 1912. Very similar. It's red and yellow, and it has the animal with its hands up on to one side. But the only difference is it's facing the other direction to the left, yet this animal is dark, and just like the one I saw in the vision. So red and yellow, animal facing up to one side with his hands up like that, forward, and then dark. So this is also very interesting. And here's where it gets kind of crazy, y'all. This flag was the flag of China until 1912, when I Googled when was Taiwan officially separate from China. Google says Taiwan was officially founded in 1912 at the start of the Republic of China. And 1912 is the same year that China stopped using this flag. So that was a little interesting. Just the fact that that year was the same, obviously. And then I looked up Taiwan. So you got China over here on the left, you got Japan over there on the right, you got Taiwan down there at the bottom as an island. And the same kind of border disputes that are happening with Bhutan are also happening with Taiwan, and I believe have been happening for an even longer period of time. And there have been so many interesting, back and forths with Taiwan, who's been in control. China was at one point, Japan was at another point, and I believe that's where Japan comes into this word. Why that flag was hanging over Japan. It's because they're going to have something to do with this. And this is what, when I prayed about this, the Lord actually said that same word that I read earlier about Bhutan also applies to Japan as well. So I'm going to read that again, and then I'm going to move forward with the rest of this word. I did promise some ambiguity here, y'all. So I hopefully am not surprising you. Okay. So the word was, there's something strange happening in this nation, war on all sides, caught in the middle like a sandwich, rumors of war in the east. And I believe this is applying to Bhutan, but also to Japan. And I'm also getting the impression that this is not limited to just Bhutan and Japan, but that China is going to be applying pressure in several directions. Okay. And this is the word I heard this is the word I shared last week on the stream. And this is part of this word. What I heard was China is casting a shadow in every direction. It's looking for neighbors who will serve alongside it, countries to join in the fight. And I got an impression immediately when I heard the fight that it's not necessarily talking about a physical fight here, but a cultural one. What is the cultural fight that's happening in China, right? And with the countries around it? I believe personally, now this is a little bit of interpretation here, okay? So we're going to have to wait till next year to fully see what's going on. I believe the cultural fight is that China is going to be putting pressure on one of these nations, potentially Taiwan, but that's me speaking. That's not the Holy Spirit. Potentially Bhutan. But again, that's me speaking, not the Holy Spirit. So please notice the difference. And I believe what could happen is it could be that China is putting pressure on the other nations to basically back them up and to go along with what they're trying to do in greedily retrieving what they believe is rightfully theirs, if that makes sense. So I hope all of this has come together a little bit. And that's where it comes back to that Winnie the Pooh war, and that kind of greedy trying to get what you believe rightfully belongs to you, that idea that I shared in that other video. This is what I heard on June 3rd. So I saw the trees, I saw that map, I saw that flag hanging over Japan. Then I heard trouble is brewing, seasons are shifting. And when I heard seasons are shifting, suddenly I heard someone singing that song, "Oh, the Times They Are Changing." It's a Bob Dylan song, okay? And so I looked this song up, and Wikipedia says Bob Dylan wrote the song as a deliberate attempt to create an anthem for change for the time. Now, there's a couple lines in the song I want to read. And this is some of the lyrics. The line, "It is drawn, the curse, it is cast, the slow one now will later be fast, as the present now will later be past, the order is rapidly fading." Okay, that line, the order is rapidly fading. And then the next line says, "And the first one now will later be last." Y'all, this is a direct reference to Mark 10:31. The first one now will later be last. Mark 10:31 says, "But many that are first shall be last, and the last first." There's also some lines in this song that echo verses out of the book of Ecclesiastes. What is the book of Ecclesiastes about? It's about Solomon, who's conquered all of these things. He's done all these great things. He's the richest man who's ever lived, right? And then he says, it's vanity. It's not worth it. I did all these things. It didn't fulfill that desire inside of me. What is it? What do I believe the connection is here? Why does China need to retrieve some of these things that are quote unquote rightfully theirs? It's just a desire that a leader is trying to fulfill, thinking that if I get that, that's going to fulfill that hole. And it's not going to work. Just like the writer of Ecclesiastes. It's not going to work. This is the next thing I heard. Russia is moving around and frustrating people. This is what's currently happening. Okay. Then the Lord said, the hearts of those who watch on purpose to fulfill what the head of Russia failed to do this time. Who is that? Who, the hearts of who? Who's watching? Probably these leaders that the Lord is talking about of places like China, right? Because what was Russia trying to do? What are they still trying to do? They're trying to retake a place that they believe is rightfully theirs, right? That belongs to them. But there's a lot of pressure happening against Russia. And here's what I believe the China is going to be trying to do is, if they can get enough backing behind them, by putting pressure on the nations around them and with things like, foreign trade, then they have a much better chance of succeeding in what they're trying to do. Okay. There's a little bit of my interpretation mixed in there, so please be aware of that. Okay. I'm going to keep reading. The Lord said, I'm opening up war in the East. I'm opening up war in the East, a springtime event. So I believe this is 2023, y'all. The Lord did not specifically say 2023, but that is the impression I'm getting. And then he said, casualties numerous. And then I heard this phrase as if someone else was saying it, but it was like echoed. And then I heard, and great was their fall. And then I saw a vision of crackers. And I saw that one cracker was cracked violently down the middle in half, like it had been snapped in two. It was like a fast break. And then I heard, the crumbs that fall will be numerous. And then I heard that word about there's something strange happening in this nation, war on all sides, that I believe applies specifically to Bhutan and Japan and potentially some of the other nations around. War on all sides, caught in the middle like a sandwich, rumors of war in the East. Then immediately after that, I saw an image of like a rocky mountainous land. And I saw flocks of birds on the rocks, like sitting on the rocks. And I believe this represented Bhutan, because right after this, the Lord started to tell me to look up that government, the trade issues, foreign trade, that kind of thing. So this is what I found, y'all. And this is called a report on Bhutan's external trade. This is a document that I found online, and it said the impact of the pandemic on trade sector has been severe, resulting in sharp decline in international trade. Talking about this nation. The pandemic has further deteriorated the already weak position of trade balance. Now look at this. This is interesting. Bhutan's trade has always been concentrated with the two neighboring countries of India and Bangladesh, which, if I'm saying that right, which jointly accounted for 82% share of the total trade. The trend is expected to continue into near future, primarily due to the geographical proximity backed by close bilateral ties with both countries. So Bhutan has ties with these countries, India and Bangladesh, if I'm saying that right. And here's the thing. If 82% of your trade is coming from specific places, if another country stepped in and got one of those countries to stop trading with you, it would spell disaster, right? So there would be a lot of pressure, economic and political pressure, to do what they were wanting you to do and to get on board with what they were telling you to do, essentially. And then obviously I heard that other word about China casting a shadow in every direction, looking for neighbors who will serve alongside it. So I believe the Lord's being very clear about the pressure that China is going to be placing on some of these nations. What are they specifically trying to do? Is this about Taiwan? Is it about Bhutan specifically? I can't say. I'm just sharing what I've heard. I'm sharing what I've seen, and we're gonna have to wait to find out the rest. One thing I did read about Taiwan was that they did in 2020, the leader of Taiwan, president, she called on the international community to defend the self-ruled island's democracy in the face of renewed threats from China, and then called on the latter to democratize and renounce the use of military force against Taiwan. So this is something, when I looked this up, I found like this is something that China has, this threat essentially that they've been renewing recently. This was in 2020. So I think that's all I have to share about China and Taiwan and all of that. It's ambiguous, y'all. It's not extremely clear what's going to happen. And you know, I'm trying to be as straightforward about that as possible. I'm gonna go ahead and get off. I love y'all so much. I'll see you next time.